I'm on my knees to plead for mercy. Don't wanna live and hurt alone. And if you feel like I feel, then come on, baby, you must remember that we're one in a million years. And then maybe you will remember that we were always gonna work it out. I just wanna say, I don't wanna see that day. I don't wanna wait until our love is gone. Come on and feel me. I don't wanna live in pain. I don't wanna love in vain. Can you hear me? Since you saved me from myself, I'm gonna live for love. Ride the wind wherever it may take us, and lay it down and grow. Oh, yeah. If you feel like I feel, then come on, baby, you must remember that we're one in a million years. And then maybe we could do it over. Love each other till the world just disappears. I just wanna say, I don't wanna see that day. I don't wanna wait until our love is all gone. Come on and feel me. I don't wanna live in pain. I don't wanna love in vain. Can you hear me? And if you turn your back on me,
crystal vision. I keep my visions to myself. It's only me who wants to wrap around your dreams. And have you any dreams you like to sell? Dreams of loneliness like a heartbeat drives you back in the stillness of remembering what you had and what you love.
Times my body, I worry, I throw my fear around. But this morning, there's a calm I can't explain. The rock candy's melted, only diamonds now remain. Ooh, 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 ooh. By the time I recognize this moment will be gone. But I will bend the light, pretend that it somehow lingered on. When all I got's ooh, ooh, ooh. To find if this will last forever, and I will wait to find if this will last forever, and I will pay no mind when it won't, and it won't, because it can't, it just can't. It's not supposed to. Was there a second of time I looked around? Did I sail through or drop my anchor down? Was anything enough to kiss the ground and say I'm here now, and she is here now?
give me a sign, you give me a lift, you take me home when I'm done my shift. You give me a loan when I'm stone cold broke. You get me high when I need a toke. I was born to love. I was born to. I was born to love. I was born to. Times were tough, we made it through. We tasted the rough, so let's say the smooth. All the time I was hurting you. Got to believe that I was hurting too. I was born to love. I was born to love. I was born to. You're the only one I can talk to, the only one I can really read. I know you give because you want to. Don't you think it's time you learn to let yourself receive? Can make you smile, can make you sing. Just wanna give back a little bit of what you give to me. I can sing you a song, play you a tune. I know it's just a little thing, but it's something I can do. I was born to love. I was born to. I was born to love. I was born to. I was born to love you. I was born to love you. Spend my life with you. Let me say this is, baby, since we've been together, loving you forever is what I need.
No, didn't see a clicker. She had one up here a little bit ago. Robert had it for a bit.
I'll never be true, baby. Ooh, baby, let's ought to stay together, loving you weather times are good and bad. Happy or sad, come on.
All right.
I'll sit here by you since
I'll leave her right there.
to go through your slides. See that remote?
Oh, is that it?
The green button looks
Yeah.
forward and
Yeah.
the red button goes back.
So you'll see it.
You
You'll see it
down
right
there?
down there. That's forward, backward. Good.
And, well, at least that way you'll know where you are.
All right, everybody, welcome, welcome. We're going to get this session kicked off here in just a second. I'm Tom Antrim, Group 5 board member. We welcome you to this critical conversation. And thank you for everybody for participating this morning in our town hall meeting. I think that was an excellent conversation all the way around. And it's very apropos that this followed that session this morning, because the growth of our firms is critical for all of us. It's on our mindsets. How are we growing our market share? How are we expanding our businesses? And we invited these gentlemen to share what they're doing in each of their communities, which is truly unique, that you'll get a chance to hear from each of them. Just to give you a highlight of how we're going to approach this today is we're going to have each share their story for about 15 minutes or so. I have a cattle prod underneath this table. If they get a little long, they'll get the zap. And and then we want to leave plenty of time for Q&A, because that's what really makes Selected unique. So we're going to give plenty of time for that conversation. So you know these gentlemen. They're all three friends of mine. Jeff Smith from Arkansas, Bill McGreevy up from Minnesota, or should I say Minnesota? Okay, all right. And my buddy Robert Nunnally over here from North Carolina. And so, yeah, do I need to North Carolina? Is that better? Okay, I'll work on that one. We're going to start off hearing from Jeff and giving him some time to share his. We'll position over to Robert from there, and Bill will wrap us up. So, gentlemen, I'm turning it right over to you.
I drew the short straw. That's why I'm up here first. Thank you, Tom. All right, let's see if I can work this remote. Okay, so just real quickly, a little bit about me. Jeff Smith. I have my wife Leslie is here with me. We have 3 children. We're almost empty nesters, not quite there. I'm third generation funeral home owner. I grew up around the funeral home, playing hide and go seek, and lots of good memories around the funeral home. Did my apprenticeship there when I was in college, and we had one location pretty much from 1955 until 2008. I entered the business in 2006. Just to kind of frame a reference, I'm 49. I graduated college in 97, and when I graduated college, I was going to come work at the funeral homes, and my dad said, "Nope, you're not welcome to come work here. You need to go out and make your mistakes on someone else's dime. Go grow a little bit, figure out if this is what you really want to do. And then if you do come back in the business, you will be a better operator and the employees will respect you more." It was wonderful advice. So that's what I did. And in 2006 is when I came back into the family business. And my wife Leslie and I bought it in 2010. So that's just a little bit about me. Our growth, and I want to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk real briefly about our growth, but I thought it would be most helpful if you have bought a funeral home or you've not bought a funeral home, or if you're thinking of selling your funeral home. I'm going to go high level at the actual process of buying or selling a funeral home, how to value a funeral home and that type of thing. But personally, our story was I came in the business in 2006. In 2008, we made our first acquisition. And then our phone started ringing. Every acquisition we've made, it's been because our competitors called us and asked us if we were interested in buying their firm. And our last one was in 2021. Our traditional funeral homes do about 2,000 calls a year. In the process, I had one crematory, I acquired a second and then a third crematory, came with the acquisitions. And so we we started a low-cost cremation business. I figured if I have all these crematories, I may as well try and control the market. And so now we are the market leader, or we're in second place actually, for low-cost cremations in our separate brand, which is Arkansas Cremation. That does about 800 calls. So we do about 2,800 calls a year. And when I came in the business, we were doing 500. This just for me is referencing, this is what I ran into when I came into the business. And one of the reasons we started buying funeral homes, the first one, was when I was working there as a young man, I call it the golden age of funeral service. Pretty much everybody came in and they wanted a burial and they bought a casket. And really the only question was, are we going to have the service in our chapel, at a church, or at the cemetery? But we were going to end up at a cemetery and come back with an empty hearse. And my dad didn't have to worry a whole lot about the profitability of the business. He just had to check the bank statement and make sure there's cash in the bank. And it was a really good business. And I call that the golden age of funeral service. Well, by 2010, when I bought the business, that was not the case anymore. As I say, Houston, we have a problem. Revenues are declining, expenses are going up, and how do we fix it? So the solution, we need to increase revenues and decrease expenses. Sounds simple. Well, as you guys know, it's not exactly that simple. If you want to increase your revenues, you can raise your prices, but you're likely to lose market share. You can try and increase your average per call, and that will help. Everybody should focus on trying to sell better, but is that really going to solve the problem? And you can try and grow your market share, and everybody should be trying to grow their market share, but that takes a while. You can decrease expenses, but you're going to hurt your brand and you're going to hurt your service because you're going to have to cut back on your staff and cut back on your facilities. So is that really an option? For me, what we have found, the solution is to acquire another funeral home, because you get economies of scale, you can consolidate, you can operate more efficiently, you have better buying power with your vendors, and you can actually increase your revenues and decrease your expenses if you can manage your staff. And we figured out how to manage our staff by looking at it as one rooftop. We have multiple rooftops, but we still look at it as one company, and we run things as one company. We don't look at it as separate locations, separate companies. Even when we had two, we always think of it as one family, and we treat our staff as one family. So they're cross-trained to help each other. They go wherever's needed. We don't segment the businesses. So that's really important for us. We really get our economies of scale and efficiencies by running everything like it's one rooftop, even though it's 8 rooftops now. When we had to break it into 2 regions, we have 4 rooftops in one region and 4 rooftops in another region. So these are the actual steps to making an acquisition. And I highlighted 3 of them because they're the only 3 I'm really going to go over today, but I will just briefly touch on all of them. The first one is identifying the targets and building relationships. If you want to grow by acquisition, it doesn't happen overnight. You need a plan. The next one is you got to build the right team. And by build the right team, what I mean is this is not the time to call on the cheapest lawyer in town or use your accountant that's your best friend that maybe you know from the Civic Club, but he's never done an acquisition transaction before. You need professionals because this is going to be the most expensive transaction that you're going to undertake in your professional career, probably your lifetime. So you need to find a lawyer that is experienced in doing acquisitions. You need to find an accountant that's experienced in doing acquisitions. And I promise you, your local buddy that's a lawyer or your local buddy that's an accountant, they won't be offended. And if they are, they probably shouldn't be your accountant or your attorney to start with. You need a pro that's going to help you. And there's others that you need on your team, but those are the 2 main ones. The other ones that I will go ahead and mention real briefly is I have used brokers and I've done deals without using brokers. Johnson Consulting and the Foresight companies are both here. They're really good to work with, and having somebody that's a professional to walk with you and hold your hand, especially if it's your first time, is worth every dime. And actually the seller pays for it most of the time. So I recommend if you do get into a transaction, having a third party help you can be extremely valuable. Confidential review comes next. That's the due diligence phase where you meet with them, you ask them to provide you information, you begin to look at their firm, and through that, and you're going to ask for tax returns, you're going to ask for financial statements, you're going to ask about their staff. Do they have a key person? Why are they selling? Are they sick? Are they losing a key person and they're worried about the future of the business? Has their business gone from 80% burial to 80% cremation? You want to find out everything about this business you can find out during this phase. And you really want to figure out, why are they selling? Because it's going to be your problem. And there almost always is, in their mind, there's almost always a problem. That's why they're selling. It doesn't mean that it's a problem for you. For you, it's probably an opportunity. But you need to figure out why they're selling their firm. The next one is determining value, which I'll show you in a minute, how you actually determine value. Then you make an offer, which is called a letter of intent. The due diligence is where you go even deeper. And the best thing I can tell you about due diligence is, Bob Horn told me this. He said, ask for all of their actual funeral contracts for 3 years and read every contract. Now that sounds like a lot, but you can learn a whole lot about a firm if you actually flip pages and you read contracts. You'll start to see who the funeral director is that's giving discounts to every family. You'll start to see that the things that maybe he didn't tell you that you're going to pick up by reading the contracts. And then you're going to obtain financing. I'll talk about that a little bit more. Then you close the deal. And then the post-closing is when the real fun begins. It's how you blend the two into one. So going a little bit deeper, identifying the targets. My dad gave me the best advice that I ever received when it comes to acquiring funeral homes, and it is, be friends to every one of your competitors. Try and help them in any way that you can. I shared this advice with a friend in Florida at NFDA last month, and he called me a couple weeks ago and he said, hey, I took your advice. I found out my competitor's dad died. And I picked up the phone and I immediately called him and said, hey, I'm sorry about the loss of your dad. During this time, if we can do anything to help you, if my staff can come help you work the funeral so your staff can attend the funeral, if you need us to do anything, we'll do whatever we can to help you during this time period. Now, the other party did not take him up on it, but what do you think that did in the mindset of that competitor when my friend called him? Be a friend to every one of your competitors. Be the first one to call them when you see that they have a problem. Go visit their firm. Go have coffee with them. Get to know them. When they get ready to sell, you want them thinking, I want to sell to Jeff Smith because I like him and I trust him. It is as my dad described it, he said, selling your business is like selling your baby. It's really, really emotional for a seller. They care very much about who they're going to sell to. And as we talked about here at Selected, we need to keep these funeral homes independently owned. I think the community benefits from it, the staff benefits from it, and if you're the buyer, you benefit from it, and if you're the seller and you sell to another independent, I think you benefit from it. I think all the way around, everybody wins when you sell to another independent owner versus a consolidator. But your competitors may not know that you're even in the market if you don't tell them. And by default, they'll call Park Lawn or SCI, or they may not even have to call them because those guys are already knocking on their door. Probably if we had a show of hands, probably almost every one of us in this room has had some type of consolidator knock on our door and offer to buy us dinner or do something nice for us because they're trying to get their foot in the door. So when the day comes that they want us to call them. I've had multiple ones call on me. They just happened to be passing through town and they wanted to come by and have a cup of coffee. Pretty big coincidence. Now I had the coffee with them because I'm not stupid, but I'm not selling my funeral home to them. My dad got to go on some really good trips. He took a little further than I did. He even got invited to the Super Bowl once. I haven't gotten that invitation. He didn't go. He was smart enough not to go though. He got invited, but he didn't go. Build relationships. I mean, really, if you want to grow and you want to buy funeral homes, you've got to tell your competitors you're in the market and you got to be a friend to them. That's super important because you want them calling you. The next thing I'll go a little bit deeper into is determining the value. So this is an actual financial statement. Of course, it's fictitious numbers, but this funeral home, it's probably hard for you to follow, but the funeral home has, let me back up. Funeral homes are sold on multiples of EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. You may have heard of that phrase, but you were too embarrassed to ask what it is. Well, if you want to know, take a picture of this slide because this is it, laid out really simple for you. And the way a funeral home's value is determined is you take the bottom line net income and you add back non-cash items. So your non-cash items are depreciation and amortization. And then you add back any interest, because when you buy the business, you're not buying their debt. They have to pay off their debt. You want to buy the business debt-free unless you negotiate to buy their debt, but usually you would not do that. And then you add back, so you add those items back. And in this scenario I gave you here, the net income of the business was $200,000. The interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization is $135,000. And then the owner's expenses, this is the actual income the owner has taken out of the business. It's not the same as the net income. The net income is the money that stays in the business going forward. The owner's expenses is what they're paying themselves on W-2, what they're paying, they're buying meals out of the company, the lawn guys coming by their house and mowing the lawn, the 401k contributions, everything, every dime that's going in the owner's actual pocket out of the business is owner's expenses. Well, those get added back because the owner's not going to be there anymore. That's going to be new revenue to you. So when you add all that up in this example, you come up with $535,000. That's the EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. And then funeral homes are sold on multiples of EBITDA. And the multiple is determined by the quality of the business. So how much pre-need you have on the books? Is the facility in good condition? Do they have a crematory? Are the vehicles new? Are the vehicles old? What's the staff like? Do they have good staff? Do they have a key man? All of these things change the price based on the quality of the business. I picked 6 times because that's very common multiple for a good funeral home. It can be a little bit lower, it can be a little bit higher, but an average is about 6 times EBITDA. So this funeral home in this example is worth $3,210,000. Now I'm going to show you how you pay for it. I have always gotten a loan. I've done a combination of a loan from the bank and seller financing. I've done 100% financing for every funeral home I purchased. I have personally not done SBA loans. Live Oak Bank is here. They do SBA loans. They're one of the biggest and the best in the country. That's an option. I can't really talk about it because I've not been through it. I've been fortunate enough to use a combination of bank financing and seller financing. And in this example, I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next slide because I think it's easier to see numbers. This is actual numbers of what it would cost to buy this funeral home and why I would buy this funeral home. I would buy it. The real estate value is $1.25 million. In Arkansas, that's pretty realistic. You can borrow 70 to 80% of the real estate value. Most banks will loan you 80%. So in the example I have here, we're borrowing $1 million from the bank, 8.5% interest rate. You can get them to finance it usually because bankers love funeral homes. They think these businesses are bulletproof. They love to finance them. So don't be afraid to talk to multiple bankers. And you can probably get 20-year amortization with a 7-year balloon, and your payment in that on the bank is going to be $8,700 a month, roughly. The seller will take a seller's note if you explain to them the benefits. Now, they're going to think they want cash, but after talking to you and talking to their accountant, they'll probably do a seller's note. Every time I've been able to talk to the seller about why they would want to help finance it. And the reason they wouldn't want to help finance it is they're going to get $1 million up front because I'm borrowing that from the bank. And then the other $2.2 million, they're going to have to go find an investment that they think they can get a better return than they can get from you. And you're going to pay them 8.5%. Well, where are they going to go get an 8.5% investment that's fairly risk-free? They're not. And they're going to have a tax problem too. If they finance it, they spread the tax cost out over several years instead of having to pay it all up front. And the numbers will show you right here. This seller's note, they probably won't want to finance it for more than 15 years, but I would try and get them to finance it for 15 years. And your monthly payment to them is $21,000 a month. That translates into $261,000 annually. Remember, they were making $200,000 a year. So they're going to get $1 million up front, and they're going to make $261,000 a year for the next 15 years. Yeah, they'll do that. Their income just went up and they got $1 million up front, and they're probably selling at the age 65 or later. So 15 years is going to essentially be the rest of their lifetime. It's a really good deal for them and for you. You can see you're going to make $170,000 by the time you take the $535 minus the debt payments. you're going to make $170,000 a year. I would buy this business at today's interest rates at 8.5. If it was 9.5, I may not, or I would renegotiate the price. For me personally, I want to make $150,000 a year or more if I'm going to buy a business, if I'm going to take on the risk and the things associated with it, because of the ups and downs. I certainly would want to project to make $100,000 a year. So I would be getting nervous if I was getting below $150,000 a year after debt service, for me personally. And just FYI, in this scenario, I did calculate it. Every 1% change in interest rates is $22,000 a year in extra debt payment. So I suspect if I talk to Bob, you're probably starting to see prices come down a little bit because interest rates are going up so much. I know it would affect me and what I would pay for a business right now versus a few years ago when I could finance it at 3 or 4%. It's a pretty big difference. But I would still buy the funeral home. I would still talk to them and I'd still negotiate because I think I could still probably get a good deal. I'm not letting the rate environment deter me from buying right now. I think it's an opportunity to perhaps get a better deal because when rates go down, then if I bought it a little bit less today because of rates, I know rates are likely going to go down in the future, then my deal just got sweeter. So this is how you would finance a funeral home. And that's us closing. That's me and my wife, Leslie, in the middle. And that's with the couple that we bought a funeral home from a few years ago. Everybody's happy. We're toasting. And that's just a real high level, actual example of what it would look like for you to actually buy a funeral home, or if you're considering selling, what you need to be thinking about when it comes to selling your funeral home. So that's the end of my portion of the presentation, Tom. Turn it over.
Well done, Jeff. I was trying to use the clicker, but it wasn't triggering enough, so you ended right on time, sir. Hold your questions for Jeff. Please write those down. We're going to come back at the end for Q&A, but Robert Nunnally, come on up, sir.
Jeff, when I grow up, I want to be like you. That was good information, wasn't it? In 15 or 20 minutes. So I'm Robert Nunnally. I'm a first-generation funeral director and grew up mostly in North Carolina, and decided at the age of 18, just after graduating from high school, that I wanted to go into funeral service. And had no idea what I was getting into, but I was able to land a job in Hendersonville as an apprentice, and did my apprenticeship. I was told, do your apprenticeship first and then decide if you want to go on to mortuary school. And not knowing anything about funeral service, never being in a funeral home, attending a funeral, I was getting into something I had no clue what it was. But I did my apprenticeship and worked for a really, really good funeral home at the time. It was an old NSM funeral home, and got excellent training. They were doing about 800 calls a year out of one rooftop, and we worked all the time. And I realized after a few months that funeral service is something I wanted to get into. So I finished my apprenticeship. I went to mortuary school and was on the fast track to get my life going, and got out of mortuary school, came back to the same funeral home, worked for about another year, and then I got this random call one evening while I was sitting down watching the evening news with Peter Jennings. And my phone rings, I answer it. Hello, Robert Nunnally, this is Tommy Prickett. You don't know me and I don't know you, but we have a mutual friend who tells me you're a funeral director and I need some help in Carthage, North Carolina. I had no idea where Carthage, North Carolina was, but it was in the center of the state and I was in the western part of the state. I went over and visited with Tommy, and he offered me a job, and about 4 months later I made the decision to move, and it was the best move I ever made. I worked with him for about 28 years and knew that I was his succession plan, because when he hired me, he was my age that I am today. And he told me that he didn't have any hobbies, that he didn't have anybody in his family that wanted to take over the business. He wanted to work as long as he could, but when he couldn't work anymore, he needed somebody that could take the business over. So I always knew in the back of my mind that I would have the opportunity to own a funeral home. It was a small funeral home, doing about 90 to 100 calls a year in a nice little town. And so I continued to work for him for years, and became impatient at times. So any of you young guys out there that or women that are waiting to buy your funeral home, be patient, because it will pay off one day. If I would have known when he hired me that it would take 28 years to own the funeral home, I would have never gone to work for him. But we don't know the future. But I will tell you, he was good to me, and he honored his promise. He worked until he couldn't work anymore. And as his health began to decline, I took more of a leadership role within the funeral home. And we acquired 2 funeral homes within 2 years of each other in our community. And so we began to grow. And at that point, I was transitioning from a funeral director into a general manager. And I didn't know how to do that. So what I do, I got into Selected. We joined Selected in 2008, right between the two, or right after the 2 acquisitions. And I jumped into Leadership Academy because I didn't know how to be a leader, didn't know how to manage. And honestly, I never got a college education. I went to mortuary school and I graduated. I came back to work and I just hit the ground running, and all I ever did was work because I liked working a whole lot more than going to school. So it did take 28 years for me to be able to fully acquire the funeral home. My business partner, Tommy Prickett, passed away in 2017. And we honestly did not have a succession plan until about 6 months before he passed away. I pushed and pushed and pushed, and every time I pushed, I would get pushback from him. But he finally agreed while he was in rehabilitation after having a stroke that he needed to do something. And I'm thankful to the Lord that he did, because I don't know what would have happened had it not happened. But we put a document together, signed it. His wife was there, and she knew what we did. And when he passed away, his wife came to me and said, "Robert, I know you and Tommy had an agreement. I don't know what it was, but I trust you to take care of it, and I want you to go ahead and get it done." And within 2 months, I bought the funeral home. She never argued about anything. She signed the paperwork. And the way it worked out is she was able to finance what needed to be financed. We're fortunate to have an insurance policy on him that paid for over half of the business. But do you know that insurance policy would have expired 1 month after he died? And I would have been having to finance the whole funeral home. So we were fortunate that, and that was something he wanted to do. We paid a high premium on that because he was in bad health when we took it out. And I always argued that we did the wrong thing, but we did the right thing, and he knew it. He knew what he was doing. So we did buy the 3 funeral homes. And then after that, one of the funeral homes that we owned was we only owned the business. We didn't own the real estate. So I went to the owners and I said, "Can we buy the real estate?" He said, "Yeah, we're older. We've had this for years. We're ready to get rid of it. Make us an offer." And at the same time, I heard about a perpetual care cemetery that was for sale in the same town. And it was a beautiful cemetery, and they were the owners were trying to get rid of it. And so I made a low offer on the building that we were in, and didn't get it. They were very kind to me, very generous, but I knew the building was worth more than what I wanted to pay for it. So they agreed to sell it, and I was fine with that. At the same time, I went ahead and pursued the cemetery, bought the cemetery with the intent of building a funeral home on there and having a combo. And the downside to that is they did sell the building really quickly, and we had to get out of it. And so we actually, in a sense, got out of that market until we could get our funeral home built on our cemetery, which we still have not been able to do. There's been a lot of issues and problems with trying to get it done. We're still working towards it and hope to in the next year or two. But we've lost some market share in that area because of it. So we'll see where that goes. The thing I think that I want to kind of focus on today is as I've gotten into ownership, I've made friends across North Carolina in funeral service, being active in the association. And one of my good friends that I really always looked up to and have had a lot of respect for is in a study group with me in North Carolina. And we just went and had dinner together one night. I wanted to pick his brain on how I could be a better business owner, how I could be more profitable, and just to understand business, because he'd been very successful. He with a partner, built a funeral home, built a good business, and then he sold it to Stewart, went to work for Stewart, and was a regional manager with over 30 funeral homes. And then he decided he wanted to get away from that, so he left Stewart, and then he opened up his own funeral home again. And he built it to a 400-call firm within just a few years. He has a son who has come up in the business and is working with him. So out of that conversation, we really didn't get anywhere until on the way home. I was driving back to Carthage. He was driving back to his funeral home, his town, which was about 2.5 hours away. And I called him and I said, Carl, I said, what if we talked about doing acquisitions together? I said, there are funeral homes all over my area that have no succession plan, and I've tried to build relationships with them, and I think there'll be opportunities for me to buy these funeral homes. And he says, I've got people in my area that I've done the same thing with. He says, I think it's a great idea. So we came together, we talked about forming a group, and he says, I'd really like to bring my son into it because he's young. He's he's the future for us, and he's done super with our funeral homes. They were just expanding to a second location, and also adding pet services, which has done very well for them. So we got together, we decided that we were going to form a group, and we were going to see what we could do. Again, I'm not the smartest guy, so I've been told you surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, that can help you with these things, and that's what I've tried to do. So we formed this group, and right after we did it, a selected member called me and said, hey, I know of a funeral home that's for sale if you guys wanted to pursue it. And it was about 2.5 hours, it was about 2 hours from me, which we were hoping to buy something close by. And it was about two hours away from my partner. But we said, well, we'll look at it. And it was actually in another state. So we looked at it, and it was a really good business, and it was independently owned. He wanted to keep it independent. One thing that we decided when we came together with our group is that we didn't really want to buy funeral homes just to acquire wealth. We wanted to buy funeral homes and try to find people within those funeral homes and give them the opportunity that we've had to become managers and maybe to even become owners of those locations. It's hard for a young person to come in and buy a funeral home without having the resources or the funds to do it. So that was how we kind of approached our group. So we went in and we looked at this funeral home. There were 3 funeral directors that were under 30, and the guys had grown up together, gone to school together. They were all friends, and they were all licensed funeral directors and embalmers. The owner had brought them up and had taught them and given them an opportunity to work. And so we thought, okay, we want to get in there. We want to figure out who we can get to manage the funeral home. And we went and interviewed everybody. And we knew as soon as we met the guys who we wanted to be manager. And so we asked the other staff, how would you feel if so-and-so was manager? They all said, he's the right one. So we made him manager. He's done an outstanding job for us as a manager. And he's intelligent, he's young. He just turned 28 a couple weeks ago, and he's running the place fine for us. Again, we're 2 hours away. We don't go up there very often. We trust him to run it. My partner's son, Ben, is the one that really works with him each day and talks to him, and they're the ones that are working together. So we did this acquisition, and we actually did it through an SBA because we were new to this. We didn't know how to do acquisitions. So we did an SBA, and just to get our foot in the door. Well, we have found out since people found out that we have formed this group and that we've bought a funeral home, we've had many people coming to us and saying, we like your idea of keeping a funeral home independent. We like your idea of promoting within. We like your idea of taking the staff that we have and giving them an opportunity to manage and maybe to own their own funeral home. And so with the one that we've bought, we've given that young man an opportunity to buy into the funeral home, to have ownership and even buy it back from us at some point if he wants to. I think we've agreed that we want to be able to keep it for 10 years, but after 10 years, we would be able to release it to him and let him buy it back. We've been able to, make connections with other independently owned funeral homes, and we're negotiating a deal that I think we will be able to close by the end of the year. We just signed a LOI, and we've been looking at it for a few months. And one thing I don't know with you guys, but it's a slow process for us, because when we did our first one, we thought we could get it done in a few months, and it took almost a year. And it is part of the whole owner wanting to let go. It's a very hard process for the owner to let go and to trust somebody that he doesn't know. But that funeral home that we bought was a selected funeral home, and we were able to keep it selected. And so it's good that we have the network through Selected to be able to find people that are wanting to keep their funeral homes independent, and even if they have to sell them for less money, which I think was talked about in the meeting this morning. And that's what we're up against. When we go to these independent funeral homes, we say, we'll work with you, we'll try to give you the best price, but we know that you can go out and get a better price if you want. If you've got a good business, there are people out there to pay you more, but we want to try to keep it independent and keep it within the community and work with the staff. So I guess, what have I done to prepare myself for this? Because if you guys are looking at buying funeral homes and maybe you own a funeral home, how do you disconnect from your funeral home, and how do you get into acquisitions? Well, for me, I realized that I was going to have to start letting go of the business that I had. And that's a hard thing to do, because I'm very involved, very hands-on. And so the first thing I did is I hired a business coach, and I brought a business coach in. I says, we need to define who we are as a company, and who's going to be, we need to define a level of leadership within the company. So the business coach came in, he worked with all the staff, he did one-on-ones with them, he brought everybody together, had meetings. The staff themselves identified, they did it without me, which was kind of a cool thing, because they wanted non-biased opinions of everything. They identified a director as a manager, and so I've made that director our director of operations. He's over all of the funeral homes and the cemetery, and he's doing a great job running everything, which gave me the freedom to be able to step back and let him do that. So he and I communicate on a regular basis, and he's the one that takes charge of everything on the day-to-day operations. So bringing the business coach in to help me to be able to step back and let somebody else take charge was a big step for me. And then learning all I can from people like Jeff and Bill and others that are here at Selected. I've been able to make connections with a lot of funeral directors here, but also our vendors. And Bob's been a big help to us, just to be able to call and bounce ideas off of him. And he's smart. We've put a lot into Johnson Consulting with our own business. And it's a great resource, but there's also other resources here, and I'm talking to a lot of them today, this week, because I may be able to use some of their resources as well. So anyway, that's kind of where I am, where I've been. We're new in the acquisition business, but I think that there are a lot of opportunities out there, and I'm learning. And maybe in a few years I'll be like Jeff, and I'll know how to look at EBITDA and figure all that out. I do need a picture of that slide, though. But anyway, it's good to be here, and it's good to be part of Selected. It is a premier association, and I'm honored and privileged to be a part of it and to be friends with you guys that are here today. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Last but not least, Bill McGreevy. Come on up.
You kept the water over here, so I got to take a quick sip if you don't mind. Thank you, Tom, and thank you, everybody, for coming here today. Don't kid yourself. These two are really smart guys. I've known them for years, and Jeff and I are actually in a private study group together, so I know his business really, really well, and he knows mine probably better than I do. So, and Tom's in the group too, and so there are a lot of resources in Selected that you can turn to, and some very valuable information. Now, I want to say this. I'm from the Twin Cities, Washburn McCravey, from the Twin Cities. of Minneapolis and St. Paul. I've never said that before in my entire life. We just bought 2 funeral homes in St. Paul 2 weeks ago. So that's the first time I've said that. So, thank you. And I'll tell you a little bit about it, but quite frankly, the three of us talked, and I'm more of a right brain guy, and I hire the left brain, and I'm serious about that. But it's served me well. And so I'm going to move quickly, but I'm going to do a little bit different than the two of them did. So you see firms selling all over the country, all over North America, all over the world. Why are they selling? Well, most of them are because they're afraid that they've maxed out their value and they don't know what to do. And so they sell it. Now, sometimes they sell it to one of our members or something, then that's great. But sometimes they even just sell off the real estate because that might be worth more. And it sounds like terrible news, like funeral service, oh my gosh. But the reality of it is, for us, there's a ton of opportunity in that. You know, the old saying of change presents challenge, challenge presents opportunity. There's a ton of opportunity out there because those things that are challenging us and making our life difficult, that's happening to our competition also. And I've also said that no way could we have been, or could we have achieved what we've achieved without our competitors beating up on us, because they're also beating up on our other competitors, and it's weakened them to the point where we've been able to buy them. And so it's really created a lot of opportunity. So there's 3 words I want to share with you. First of all, number 1 is vision. Second is plan. And the third is execution. Most people don't even get the vision. If you get nothing out of this entire presentation from me, it's about vision. That you need to see your business differently, you need to expand your thinking, and you need to dream a little bit and say, what if I could do this? Or what if I could do that? And it's kind of like this, before GPS, you know, if you're going to drive from point A to point B and it's, you know, it's somewhere that you're familiar with, but you're not really sure how to get there, there's one way to do it. Yeah, think of how you're going to go to get there. But you can also get out there, way out there, and say, if I was there, how would I drive back? And then connect the two. And that's what you need to do, is you need to say, what if I could buy that firm? What if I could build in that area? So you need to expand your thinking a little bit, and you need to be the architect of what you're going to do, because you do need to hire, as Robert and Jeff mentioned, you're going to have a good attorney. You're going to have a good CPA. And I'll also say, as the others mentioned, good consultants. I don't know if Chris Kruger's in the room or not. If you are, give a wave. I don't think he is. With the Foresight Group. He's a great resource. Jake Johnson with Johnson Consulting, great resource. David Nixon, I think he's still doing that too. Rob, we have to have somebody in this organization that we can turn to for demographics. You and I will talk. It used to be Benchmark. I don't think we do, but I don't honestly know. We might, but we need that. That's a piece that you need, and you'll see that shortly here. So I want to say something about risk. I believe that most people don't do anything because they're afraid to take too much risk. If there's no risk, there's really no reward, or there's no meaningful reward. But I will submit this to you also. If you just want the world to stay exactly as it is, and you're comfortable in Mayberry, and you're just hoping that nothing changes, I got news, it's going to change. If it hasn't yet, now it might not change as fast as the major metropolitan areas, but there's risk in doing nothing. You just sit there. That might be the most dangerous thing you could possibly do, is not diversify. That's why we're going into St. Paul, to be diversified. You know, we've got, what do we have now? 17 locations in the Minneapolis metropolitan area and 2 more now in St. Paul. And, you know, probably we're just getting started in that marketplace. Now, we paid a 6 times multiple. Jeff, that was great what you displayed there, EBITDA. If, you know, again, you have to learn that for the first time. If you're not familiar with it, it's every day, you know, with the consultants. Google it, read about it. I will tell you, Jake Johnson wrote a book, and you need to read it, just simply said. Or if you have kids coming up, it's a really good book. I highlighted it. I gave one to I've got 3 people that are my exit strategy. I got 2 sons that are licensed funeral, actually 4, 2 sons that are licensed funeral directors and 2 nephews. And it's a really good book. And then Chris Kruger's got some great information too. These guys are brilliant, and you've got to use them. So you need a good consultant. EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. I'll add one more thing to it also that Jeff is well aware of because we talk about it all the time. EBITDAR, and that's where rent comes in. That sometimes there's rental income. So that'll be my only left brain contribution today, okay? I'm leaving it to the guys that are a lot smarter than me. So, and you think I'm kidding, Tom knows I'm not. So, they know me way too well. My CPA, our CPA, my family's CPA, is our board chair. And I have told him, I drive the race car, you tell me when I'm going to blow the engine. I'm not all that concerned about, he knows the numbers really well. He's really smart, been with them for decades and decades. And I just say, I'm going to drive this car as hard as I can, and it's your job to tell me if we're about to blow the engine financially. And he always, I know where he's at. And so I know how hard I can drive, and I just drive it as hard as I can. I want to tell you about a couple people. Number one, my father is my hero. Jeff's dad, of course, passed away. He was a great guy. I knew him. And my father is my hero. He had vision. And he not only had the vision, he had a plan, and he executed the plan. And so and my mother alongside of him, she put up with a lot, trust me. And with me too, she did. So, but he had a vision, and he was the one that took it to multiple locations. They had one location, and he went to 2, then he went to 3, then he went to 4, then he went to 5, then I came into mortuary school, and we went to 7, and then we went from there. Okay, now, I want to tell you about John Horan, past president of Selected. He and I go way back to NSM. And John turned me on to a gentleman by the name of Dr. Erwin Smallheiser. And he did demographic research. That's why I say we need that. And I spent $9,000 on demographic research. And it created the greatest opportunity of my lifetime. It's our highest volume location. So then in the study group, there was also a gentleman by the name of E.J. Urso. Some of you, I think, how many knew E.J.? Just a few, yeah. Interesting guy, great big man, came from Europe selling chickens on his back. By the time he was done, I think he sold alone, I think it was 85 million. That's pretty good. Go from selling chickens on your back, and the LSU College of Business is named after him. It has his name on it. The E.J. Urso College of Business, LSU College of Business. So 22 years, when I was 22 years old, which is exactly 40 years ago, I said to E.J., E.J., what would you have advice for a 22-year-old kid? He looked at me and was just quiet for a minute. And he's a great big man with a deep voice. He said, Billy, and that's how he sounded, for those of you that know him. Let me tell you something. He says, there's fields of diamonds out there. All you got to do is go out and pick them up. And it's true. It's true. There are fields of diamonds out there, and you got to go out and you pick them up. But most people don't because they're afraid, or they're afraid of the risk or something like that. You got to go out and pick them up. Reputation, both of these guys talked about reputation. It's a key element. How you operate, who you are, what your values are, this kind of thing. The concern for staff. We're going to talk about legacy sellers, and let's see if this fancy thing can work now. How's that? Okay, and I'm going to blow through this really quick because I want to make sure you don't have the timer on me. But I know where I'm at. Oh, you got it? Okay, I know you got the cattle prod. Okay, here we go. So there's slide 1. Okay, this slide. Why would I put this up here? It might be the most important slide. That was our first funeral chapel, we think, okay? Now, William Glessner was a furniture manufacturer, came from Pittsburgh, settled on the banks of the Mississippi River. He built tables and chairs and that kind of thing. He brought in my great uncle, William Washburn. William Washburn brought the piece to build caskets. You know, our company's 166 years old. So it was a first established organization in Minnesota. Then he brought in my grandfather, who was my dad's dad, Don McCreevy. Now, here's the thing. They went from being a furniture manufacturer to manufacturing caskets to then forget about manufacturing caskets. We'll buy them from, you know, the other vendors, and they went into just being funeral directors. And you can see in this era, it says Washburn Undertakers on that sign, and then furniture. And furniture is twice as big. So that, to me, indicates furniture was probably a pretty big part of what they were doing at that point. Dirt road and everything else. Okay, so now, you can't buy a reputation, you must earn it. Harvey Mackay, he's a well-known author. He bought a failing envelope company and turned it into a multi-million-dollar organization. Friend of mine, mentor. I've read a bunch of his books. He's given me books and autographed them, that kind of thing. Legacy seller, that's what you want. You want people that sell their business to you, and their highest priority is not the money. It's making sure that their legacy is preserved and they care about their employees and all that kind of thing. So we want to look for legacy sellers is what we really want. This is hard to read down here. This is our Davies Chapel. When I was in mortuary science school in 1983, this was the building we bought. I showed my dad, he had built a first suburban location with white pillars. And, you know, they used to do the postcards. You've probably seen them around. Don't do them anymore. And I took an X-Acto knife and I cut out pillars and I put it on this building. That whole white thing wasn't there. That whole mansard roof wasn't there. And right away, my dad said, yes, we're doing it. And that became kind of part of our branding there. Our master scheduling is there. Our pre-need administration is there. Centralized automobile fleets, centralized flower shop. We do really well with the flower shop. We've been doing it for years. It may not fit what you do, and so be careful. But it works really well for us. And this Welander Quist was actually the members of Selected or of NSM. And then we bought them, and that's when we became Selected members. Okay, I show you this picture because you have to have the infrastructure. This is our care center. And so we do all of the preparation work at one central location for what is now 19 locations. And again, centralized casket purchasing, storage, and distribution. So, but you have to have the infrastructure. And this picture too, just to show you. Ironically, one of my sons was putting in this racking system. I said, we need this because we were going to do an acquisition. And it's not the one we ended up with. We'll probably still do the one that I've been working on for years. Actually, two other ones. I don't know which one will pop first. I'm ready for whichever one does. But we've got 3 coolers like this, that you've got an automated deal, and the staff love to work there. And, you know, we've got like 6 people. That's all they do is preparation work. And we got 2 every night of the week. So actually we got 4 at night that work opposite of each other, and we got 6 during the day. And that's all they do is preparation work. Success is where preparation and opportunity meets. Demography, the scientific study of human births and deaths, life cycle of the city, growth followed by decline, followed by renewed growth, followed by inevitable decline. Things change. You've got to expand. You've got to diversify. Demographics, here you'll see an example of census tracts. That should be terminology you're familiar with. There's always so many deaths in a census tract. Resident deaths. How many people die in a community? Deaths per 1,000. 8 deaths per 1,000 is a great place to build a funeral chapel or buy one. 2 deaths per 1,000 is not. Okay, that's kind of the extreme. And so you want one with a lot of deaths. Advanced median age, well, that ties right into how many deaths there are. This one here, now this I would not show at NFDA. And I made sure that there were no handouts, because, you know, I'm not worried too much. I mean, but this is what we did. For my first 8 years, we declined, quite frankly. We bought that Welander Quist, and then we started to decline because all of our properties were inner city. My father and I and my mother, you know, we said, it was the 3 of us, just the 3 of us at that point. And we've got to reinvent ourselves, but we didn't know exactly how to do it. We almost sold, not once, but twice. And by 1989, I did the demographic study, and we found this location, the next one I'm going to show you in Edina, but just a couple things. I don't have a pointer here, but you could see the trajectory that going down, had we not expanded or built anything, that's the trajectory we would have been on. But as it is, acquiring and expanding, that's the trajectory. Now, I can tell you that that red line is pre-need, and that's struggled in recent years because we've just taken so much of our marketplace. But now we're about to have the best year of pre-need that we've ever had. And so we're doing really well on that. I'm not afraid to share with you that we use Funeral Directors Life Insurance Company. It doesn't really matter who you use. And we use Precoa. They're all great companies. And so, you know, just the key is you got to do it. Pre-need is critical. And when you buy a business, you look through every pre-arrangement too. We have found checks in there that never got cashed, all kinds of stuff. So this gives you an idea. Okay, this is Edina. This is an example of a restaurant that was remodeled, okay? And I won't go into the rest of it, but 400 resident deaths. And yeah, we competed, you know, directly with SCI. I have a great respect for that organization. I've got a lot of friends there, in fact. This was a bank. Did you know that this building was a bank? This hotel was a bank. It's amazing. And no wonder I can't find my way around the damn thing. So anyhow, you know, just one chapel, one visitation room. So, but this is the coolest building, but you can only do one thing at a time. This is our hillside cemetery funeral home combination. And it's a great facility. The picture doesn't really do it justice. We've got 6 crematories in the building, a reception center, and what else is there? 82%, you know, at need to interment ratio. And so we look at those things and measure everything that we do. One thing I want to mention for sure, one of our locations that we built, I can go into the next one here. This is Glen Haven. Right down the street from it is a standalone funeral home in a different city that we tore. What we did was we wanted a newer facility, so we built the chapel on the parking lot and tore down the old house. And that's something that you could think about doing. If you need a new facility for your community, build it on the parking lot, potentially. Be careful if you move it too far away, because there's emotional attachment to that location and even to that building. Don't do it unless you have to, because it's expensive. But this is what our prototype is for the future. And I'm looking to build a new place too, and I know right where it's gonna go, and I'm working with a commercial realtor. And that's another key thing. You really, if you're gonna expand or build something, commercial realtor. Nothing else there is that great. Okay, Veterans Memorial. That's the largest privately owned Veterans Memorial in the state of Minnesota. That's on one of our cemeteries. If you have cemeteries, obviously features are an important thing to have. Last thing here, some people want it to happen. Some people wish it would happen. Others make it happen. You have to make it happen. Michael Jordan, he's made it happen. And so you can't just sit back and just hope for things. Hope is not a strategy. So, Mr. Moderator, I have no idea where we're at, but I hope we're okay.
Well done. So thank you to each of these gentlemen for sharing a little bit of their story, their vision, and how to expand each of our marketplaces. We want to open it up to Q&A, and I'll run around and catch you with the microphone. So if anybody has a question for any one of these folks. All right. I'm coming, Kev.
Don't make it too hard.
It'll be simple. Hey, guys, that was a great presentation. Thank you. It means a lot for you guys to be up there. My question is, so with my selected hat on, in your ownership structure, and you buy these businesses, how does selected fit into that? I mean, does each firm become selected because you guys are? So it's pretty simple then. That's great.
I mean, correct me if we're wrong, Rob.
I'm sorry, what?
Any acquisitions become selected
Yeah.
locations. That's the company.
As long, yeah, yes.
And
I mean, unless the structure changes, but no.
I actually asked the question to Sarah because when we set ours up, we set it up in LLC as a new group. And if the funeral home that we bought was a selected firm, and I wanted to be sure that we could keep the selected status, and it did fall within the bylaws, so we were able to do that.
And I'll add about buying firms and growing. Selected is a great resource for my staff. They probably get as much, honestly, they probably get more out of Selected membership than I get. Because of the forum, the online, the study group, and if they're going to go to a convention, I've sent staff to NFDA. It's overwhelming. They love it, but they really don't get anything out of it. I've sent staff to this meeting. It's very, very practical. So it's Selected is like for my staff, for my organization, it's the best organization we're a part of.
Other questions? Got him.
After you acquire a location, how long does it take you to assimilate it into your organization? Ballpark in time?
We have a 100-day plan. So, we've done it a few times, but I'd be happy to share it with you. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and we break down the business into accounting, operations, and we have marketing. And so we have a plan. I sat down with 3 or 4 of us, sat around the table, and we just brainstormed everything that needs to happen. And we start working on that months before we close. So the day we close, we're off and running. And it's really, for us, I think it's about a year before I feel like, it's really integrated. We don't fire anybody. We keep everyone. That's part of the goodwill we want to have. And but usually over the course of the year, the bad apples do leave on their own. But we follow that plan, and we get a whole lot accomplished in the first 100 days because there's a lot to do. I mean, everything down from changing the sounds out front to getting everybody on one credit card processor to one case management system. One pre-need company. It's a lot of change that happens. But if you're organized, you can do it. We don't get it all done in 100 days, but we get it started. It takes about a year for us.
Not sure this works. There it is. Every one of them is different. I could tell you that we bought 3 funeral homes and 3 cemeteries from an SCI divestiture back in 2005. I still we're still digesting that. That was so hard. I had people making funeral arrangements. I didn't even like them. I had no choice. Any kind of licensed funeral director was better than no licensed funeral director to meet with somebody somewhere somehow. I mean, it was really tough. But we've really turned that company around a lot. Those properties, and I mean, we've done major remodelings and everything else. But there's so many different things, and you still come up with different things. But I can tell you right now, this one that we just bought, these 2 funeral homes. I'm being really careful and slow. I've talked to all our staff about we're going to be very methodical about this because I don't want to disturb the culture of the business. We've retained every single one of their employees. I mean, even the maintenance guy, who's a great guy, and 4 receptionists, their husband and wife, licensed funeral director that, we've known for years. We knew this would probably happen someday. They wanted it. We probably wanted it. We didn't know for sure. But, and our first offer, they took. They didn't want to take any chances. We came in with a 6 times multiple, and they said, I mean, the wife said, this looks very fair to us, and that was it. That's how the negotiation went. But we're going to be careful with the name. John Morrow, who used to be one of the top people at SCI, he was a great guy and a smart guy. He said, you're really careful when you mess with the name. And you've got to be careful of the name of whatever funeral home name is, because that's the heritage that you're buying. You're buying the name and that kind of thing.
Any other questions? Boyd?
So I've had my own challenges with acquisitions, and I wanted to ask you guys, so you go make the acquisition, and what are you doing to bring the bookkeeping into your main organization? Are you letting the books are being kept at these new acquisitions? I mean, you keeping the old bookkeeper, or are they getting your monthly reports, the things you need? Or you bringing them into whatever the mother firm is for your organization? How are you handling that?
we consolidate it, and that's the first thing we consolidate. The numbers are, for me, numbers are really, really important as we grow. I mean, they're always important, but we try to, that's just, I don't want to run two different case management systems. And we get prepared with our own bookkeeping staff so that for the first period of time, we're entering, if they don't use Smart Director, we use Smart Director, we're going to get them on Smart Director right away. And we start entering contracts till we can teach them how to enter contracts at their location. And we roll out our process. It's, I don't want to have two different accounting operations going on. That's just really difficult to get numbers and understand what's actually happening. So that's probably the first thing we move on.
I will tell you, that's a very good question, Boyd. And what we do is, first of all, right now, they use Continental software and we use Passari. They're running parallel right now. And we don't know exactly when we're going to dispose of Continental. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but we are Passari, they become us. But there's no deadline for it. We'll do it when it's right. We figured it would be about 2 weeks. But if it turns into a month, it's not that big a deal. But we have people in accounting, we have one person in one office for accounts payable, one person in one office for accounts receivable. So money in, money out. We hope that there's one office that's doing better than the other. So that's the goal. I don't know if we achieve it or not, but there's a lot to it. Website, we're doing a general price list right now that I know we can't talk about price, but we all know a general price list is federally mandated. And we have it on our website. They had it on theirs too. And we have to merge those. I mean, you got to merge everything. And the names and everything. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to do, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah. I mean, who wants to ski a blue run? You want to go for a black diamond or maybe even a double black diamond. That's where the fun is.
I think both these guys are right, that is a very important thing to do off the bat, and that's something that we agreed to do, and with our first acquisition was to bring everything into one office. So we're using, actually started a case management system. They didn't have one, so we used what we were using, Halcyon, and then we brought all the bookkeeping into the office too. So all the bills come into our office, all the bills are paid out of our office.
So that's what I've had to do. I've had theft at some of our companies.
All those pre-needs, you're taking that into consideration in the price that you're paying. So you're going to service those pre-needs, but you know that going into it, and you're buying the opportunity.
Are you in fear of the legality part of it, though, if they did the pre-needs wrong? You know, I mean, if they didn't say what casket was?
Probably.
Yeah. That's part of it going into it. Just be sure you do the right thing. So don't cut corners when you're fulfilling those pre-needs.
Right.
You know, that's a really good question, and it's a great opportunity for you. But, you know, just keep in mind one thing too, the old saying of some of the best deals are the ones that never happen. You got to make sure that, and that's where you bring in a consultant, bring in one of these people that, David Nixon, Jake Johnson, Chris Kruger, bring them in and say, here's the deal. We want to look at this thing. You're going to want them to see what the price would be anyhow. I've actually hired for one of the acquisitions we haven't made yet, because it was going to be very expensive, the most expensive one we'll ever do. And it'll happen. I just don't know when. But I hired both Johnson Consulting and Foresight to get both of them, and they didn't see the information. Then we have our CPA. 3 different sources looking at the numbers. The CPA, of course, he and I are working together. But these 2 companies, they don't know. And don't you dare talk to each other. They're not going to do that. I want to see what you think this company is worth and what you think it's worth. And it's hard to spend that money sometimes, but I'll tell you what, it's worth it. You bring one of those guys in and they analyze that whole thing and you figure it out, because you don't want liability, but you know what? We've taken on things that are probably worse than that. I mean, that sounds pretty bad though, I got to be honest with you. So, but the worse it is, the greater the opportunity. It's got to be at your price, and it really can be at your terms also.
And they need to have a decent reputation. That's a given. If they have a horrible reputation, that's going to be hard to turn around.
They've still kept their, they're still the leader in the bigger community, but I just see slowly, I see their market share dropping, and things are slipping away from them fairly.
I will tell you this too. This doesn't sound very nice. I'm usually a pretty nice guy or whatever, but more than once, and we're probably going to be doing it now too, we have eroded their business so badly that then we buy it. Nobody else wants to compete with us, and it gets down to the price where nobody else will buy it. And so then we buy it at the price we want to pay, not the price they're asking originally. And I will tell you right now, one organization like that, they served 700 families and they dropped all the way down to 200. And where do you think those 500 calls went? Right down 1.4 miles down the road, 500 calls. Now, it didn't happen overnight. You got to be patient in some of this stuff too. I mean, you know what flat squirrels are, right? Okay? They're evidence of the consequences of indecision.
Yeah.
You don't want to be a flat squirrel.
Well, and they would never find out what the business is worth, honestly. I talked to them years ago about getting an evaluation. They said, that's $2,200. We're not going to get an evaluation. So they wouldn't know.
Thank you guys for all the sharing today. What's your general guideline for how long you want the previous owner to stay around? I know it's situational, but do you give them like a 1-year ramp down, or what's the general goal?
I can answer for us, and the owner did agree to stay on, and we were paying him to stay on. But once we identified the manager, he real quickly took over, and I think that was a big adjustment for the owner. And he's continued to stay on. He floats in and floats out. He waits on a family every once in a while. He goes on funerals, but he's quite often calling me and saying, Robert, these guys are young. They still need some training. They need some experience. This isn't the way we did it. They've changed this. And, that happens. I mean, I'm sure you guys can allude to it a whole lot more than I can. But he's a great guy, and he trusted us to buy his business. But it's been a year this month, and we've got a meeting to talk to him about what his involvement is going to be in the future.
You know what an FO is, right? That's a former owner. I thought you said pre-need. I might not have heard you as well. I played in a lot of rock bands. What? Yeah, former owner. Do we have time for a quick story that's got a lot of meaning in it? I hope. I don't have any idea what time we go till. Let me tell you something. One of our acquisitions, because sometimes it gets a little, you roll up your sleeves a little bit. This deal that we just did, this is really smooth, really easy, but one of the deals that we did, let me tell you something, that the former owner didn't want to sell to Washburn McCreevy because he didn't like my father. He didn't like us. And quite frankly, nobody really liked him. But he did own a cemetery, and he built a funeral home on the grounds. And since then, we own it, we've remodeled it extensively. It's the one that has 6 crematories in it, if you remember that picture. We got down to a point where they were nationally bidding the thing, okay, throughout the entire country. Forever Enterprises was a company that was going to buy it. And it came down to they were going to buy it, and we were out. And I knew the son-in-law, and we were friends, and he was going to work for us, and we were going to, have a great time together and everything else. He said to me, Bill, I'm flying out to California to tour their property and everything else, and I think it's going to go that way. And, and the owner was 92. And so, he's got to do something. And here's what had to happen, because it doesn't always get pretty. And I'll tell you what I did. I thought, I got to figure out who this company is. And I don't want to say the other name, but they also had a pre-need company that got in a lot of trouble financially. This was pre-internet. It was 2001. Just before the internet, I think, came on. And I had to dig around and call some friends around the country. And I talked to a guy, he says, now, who are you? He says, I'm going to fax you something. He says, you're friends with who? And I told him who, and I'm going to fax you something. He faxed me something, because we didn't have internet, that showed that the owner of that company did some time in prison for embezzlement. I called up the manager, and I took that out, and I said, Dale, and Dale worked for us. He was a superintendent of the cemetery. This is going to be your new boss. What happened? I didn't know it. Dale, the superintendent of the cemetery, and the son-in-law went to his house, and I found it out afterwards, and said, if you sell to these people, we both quit. Then we came in and we bought it for $150,000 more. And then they realized there was an asset that wasn't even on the asset list of a backhoe that was about $80,000 that we got. And so we got an asset of $80,000 that we didn't even know we were going to be getting. They didn't know, we didn't know, and we got it. And so it can get ugly. It's not always pretty, and it's not always a friendly deal. And sometimes the FO is a former owner that I've heard it referred to as an FFO. So, be careful.
The former owners, it's dicey. If you're buying it, like in Robert's example, I think he gave you a really good example. Robert has a good relationship with the former owner. Robert's there for the former owner to call and complain to, and Robert listens to him and says, yes, 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 and then Robert hangs up and probably doesn't do anything about it. But you want that former owner's goodwill, but you also got to understand it's really hard for them to let go of the business. But going forward, I don't want the owner working in the business. It just doesn't work out very well, really, for the former owner. It's not me. They have a hard time because every change you make, they typically see it as you're not as smart as me, or they take it as an insult. It's just very difficult. But you need a good relationship with them.
That former owner would be a yes, but guy, right?
That's exactly right. Maybe a no, but.
When you're working on acquisitions and trying to come up with a valuation, and maybe it's a question for the consultants as opposed to I consider you three experts in your field because of your experience. How do you have a formula for evaluating the value of the prepaids? And it's not always a positive, sometimes it's a negative with prepaids because of the liabilities you take on and the guarantees.
So there probably is a better question for the brokers, the experts that do valuations. I can tell you from my perspective, I'm looking at the overall business, I'm looking at their case mix, and I want to know how much of their business is coming from pre-need fulfillment. Are they putting as many pre-needs in the drawers they're taking out? All of that factors into not necessarily the price for me personally, but the multiple I'm willing to pay for the business. And the quality of the pre-needs, like the example he was given about, I bought a place that had a lot of really bad pre-needs, but I saw a ton of opportunity to improve the quality of the firm and raise the prices. And we service pre-needs now that are less than half of what our at-need prices are at that location. It's just part of the deal. But if there's a formula for that valuation piece, I see Bob shaking his head no. There's not. It just kind of just goes in the whole recipe. It's just a piece of it.
Question over here.
Yeah, a little bit of a follow-up to some of the other questions earlier. If you see a business that's underperforming and potentially you can acquire, do you allow yourself to overpay a certain amount, whether it's 10%, or do you a higher multiple than maybe what you would, knowing that
I can tell you that we have always consolidated the GPL just to make sure it's easy. We move our people around, but we also have north side arrangers, south side arrangers primarily. Try to keep the managers as much as possible in one place. We have a big chart that shows all of our locations, all of the arrangers, and it shows exactly where they've made them. And we try to have it, ideally, there's a bunch of zeros on that chart because we want Jim at the Edina Chapel as manager. We want Scott at the Eden Prairie Chapel as a manager, staying in one place as much as possible. But you can move them whenever you need to. To address your question about overpaying is dangerous. Our CPA, chairman of the board, he pretty much won't let me do that. Again, going back to the race car, there's one deal that I could have probably paid $100,000 to $200,000 more and we would have gotten it. And I regret not getting that one. But having said that, that button didn't get pushed, so something else did. And so you can't do, we try to do them one at a time also. But I can tell you that the one that we bought that, I got that fax that said somebody had done something illegal. Another one came down at the same time where we bought the bank, and we bought the bank for $500,000 and put $500,000 into it. The next thing you know, you're up and running for $1 million. Well, it just landed at the same time. We try not to do it, we try to do one at a time. And so maybe, once again, being patient. And maybe that price will come down. Maybe it'll go up.
Yeah, I would follow up on that. Be very careful about overpaying because you have to live with it. I know what I wanted to say to that. Rarely are you going to determine the price alone. Every time I've bought one, there's either been a broker or multiple, even multiple bidders, national consolidators or someone else. I don't think there's been a transaction where there wasn't another party involved that's given the seller, an opinion of value, whether it be another potential buyer or a broker or somebody else. And so you're kind of playing off that, and then you've got your people helping you determine. You need to know what your number is, though. That's the most important thing. What's your number? I can go up to this limit, and then I'm done. And when you're done, you really do need to be done. You need to know what that number is. And I've had it twice where I said I'm done, and they came back around and I bought them because they came back to me. But when you're done, you're done.
With regard to the legacy purchase, could each of you elaborate on your philosophy on when and if you do a name change? Do you keep the same name, merge your name, completely incorporate your name? Just your philosophy on how that decision process goes.
I'll tell you right now, I don't know what I'm going to do yet or what we are going to do. I don't make decisions by myself. I got my 2 sons, my 2 nephews, my sister, my mother, my father, there's a bunch of us. And there's 8 McCreevy's in this thing now.
I just got a headache listening to that.
I know. Trust me. I got a bottle of Excedrin upstairs if you need it. So, but the name that we just bought is Holcomb Henry Boom Purcell. Now, Holcomb and Henry were great entrepreneurs. Boom, I knew, and he was a great guy. And he had one of my favorite sayings. He said, a funeral without a body is like a baptism without a baby. And he was a smart guy and a really good guy. And beautiful building that we just bought. Probably the nicest building of all of them that we have. I mean, it's gorgeous. And But here's what we're going to probably do. Up above, we're going to put just the script Washburn McCreevy, and then we're going to keep their sign the same for a while because we want to preserve. I have a lot of respect for Johnny Morrow, which is, some of the older people know him, and great man, smart funeral service mind. And boy, he says, don't mess with the name. And what we'll do over time is like what we did with Wielander Quist that we bought in 1983. Slowly the name goes away. Now it'll still be on the sign. You just say Washburn McCreevy in script and then just block letter Wielander Quist Davies Chapel is what we have. Because there's still people that say, yeah, we always went to Wielander. There's one news person that always jokes about, yeah, well, someday you're going to wheel me down to Wielander Quist. And then when I hear that on the airwaves or something like that, I say to myself, don't let the name go. And we've owned it since 1983. And but how you answer the phone matters too. And how you put it in the obituary and stuff like that. But you try to preserve it as much as you can because you've paid for that name and you don't know what button it's going to hit. I can tell you right now, there are some people in the St. Paul market that say, well, just call Holcomb Henry. That's where we went for Dad. That's where we went for Uncle Joe when we were little kids, So you got to be careful with the name.
Last question over here. When you find yourself on the same side of the room with Sarah, our attorney, that's the final word. So here you go.
Oh man, that's a lot of pressure.
And I know when she was here, I don't know if I would have said half of what I said.
Jeff, this is a question for you. You had mentioned seller financing. In your situations where you've done that, it seems like most of them, have you had the seller request any kind of a guarantee or any kind of mechanism to protect them? You're talking 15 years, and if so, what does that look like?
I think only twice. Now, if I was the seller, I would always want a guarantee. So what they want is a personal guarantee, maybe a second lien on the real estate. One time it was only a personal guarantee. The other time it was a personal guarantee and a second lien on the real estate. If it was me, I would want a lien on the real estate, a second guarantee, and anything else I could get if I was doing it. But keep in mind, it's really hard to kill a funeral home. It takes a long time for a funeral home to die. And they chose you because they believe in you, and they obviously believe in their business. So it's not if you manage the conversation right, it's not a hard hill to overcome. But usually it does take some conversation because they're thinking cash. I want $3 million. I want $3 million. you got to be careful how you navigate that conversation, but I've always had them come around.
Go ahead, Bill. Well, one comment on that. This last deal that we did, 100% seller financing. And that is a really sweet deal. That is a legacy seller completely. You know, I mentioned Holcomb Henry. Boom then bought the business from them. Rich and Sharon Purcell, who are very close friends of our family and that kind of thing, we weren't really competitors because they were in St. Paul. They did the seller financing, you know, with Dennis Boom and Elaine Boom, and they were like going to pass that favor on or that kind of thing. It's a good deal for them. It's a good deal for us. But when it's all said and done, they've got their money. They're still able to go to Hawaii like they do, easier than they've ever done before, because they go there a lot. And it's a situation where their legacy is protected, their employees are protected, everything else. They can go through the rest of their life with a smile on their face and money in the bank. And seller financing is huge. The other piece is this, what's even also maybe even more important. Now, our banking, you know, our financial people, our credit limits, we can do whatever we want because we got our eye on two other places. If I can't buy one of them, I'm going to build right between them. So, and eventually we might be building two, but one of them will pop or we'll build, and then we'll just take their business away. Did I say that out loud?
You did. It's Gentlemen, thank you so much for your candor and discussion today. Right on time. Don't forget, we have lunch down in the grand ballroom or your work group, so thank you guys very much.